Hello, Vudani here, and today I'm going to give you a PvP overview of the Necromancer class in Guild Wars 2. Like many other games, the Necromancer in Guild Wars 2 is a master of life and death, quite literally in this game with their life force mechanic. If you build up enough life force, you'll be able to use what is called Death Shroud. Your health and damage in Death Shroud is controlled by not your health, but your life force. The more life force you have when entering will make you more powerful. However, as your life force decreases, your potency in Death Shroud decreases as well. Death Shroud essentially gives Necromancers a second life, making them very difficult to take down. The Necromancer is equipped with many skills that will aid in gaining life force, including Spectral Armor, which is also a very solid defensive cooldown. On top of that, nearby enemies dying will also help you gain life force. Of course, the Necromancer isn't just about Death Shroud. They're also equipped with some pretty nice utility skills, including summoning minions and wells. Much like engineer turrets, minions for the Necromancer will remain persistent until someone has killed them or they are commanded to kill themselves, while wells provide large ground targeted effects that will affect enemies in various ways as well as allies. The general offensive plan for the Necromancer revolves around conditions. They have many skills that synergize well with the conditions available on their weapons, primarily using bleeds and vulnerability for offensive damage. Alternatively, they have many slot skills that will combat against conditions, including turning conditions on yourself into boons and giving your conditions to enemies. After hearing about Death Shroud, you probably thought it sounded pretty good, and you're absolutely right. Death Shroud is incredibly useful. A second life bar on any class sounds pretty gosh darn good, and it is. In practice, it acts almost like a invulnerability. However, an invulnerability would assume you can't attack back, which you absolutely can attack back in Death Shroud, and you are very deadly in Death Shroud. I would consider Death Shroud to really be the defining factor of the Necromancer. The Necromancer is equipped with multiple very powerful elite skills, including Lich Form and Plague Form. Both will give you a separate skill bar with attacks that are very good. Plague Form will allow you to almost permanently hinder enemies with either cripples, bleeds, or blinds. Without any formal DR in this game, blinding people constantly is very effective. Similar to that, you'll have Lich Form, which can put out a huge amount of ranged AoE damage, turning the tides of battles. The Necromancer, however, is not without its flaws. There aren't very many high-level builds available that I'm aware of, and they almost always rely on Death Shroud to some extent. These builds are very good, but they are also very cooldown reliant. Without elite skills, you'll find yourself a lot less effective than many other builds and classes. I'd just like to see some of the weaker weapons with the Necromancer buffed a bit, or made to work better with utility skills. Another problem I have with the Necromancer is that you have no burn source. Burning is very good damage, and just applying it will get it ticking, but there's absolutely nothing. You do have plenty of bleeds and poisons, but having a burn would drastically improve your damage. Lastly, this is more of a preference thing, but if you do not like long battles, you should not choose the Necromancer. Most fights can end up to be pretty long, and you will have to outlast people. You will have some options for decent burst damage, but for the most part, you're gonna be surviving. My rating for the overall effectiveness of the Necromancer in PvP is a 4.0. The Necromancer is a very well-rounded class with roles in each of the three formats. In hot join matches, you could expect that the Death Shroud would make a Necromancer almost invincible. It's quite the chore to take down a good Necromancer without focus fire. In tournament play, Necromancer's elites are incredibly effective for group fights. They have many good utility skills for the team, but it becomes easier to chew through a Death Shroud with multiple people attacking you. In World vs. World, they certainly have a couple good uses, including skills that will spread conditions almost everywhere. The Necromancer's ability to control conditions can be very potent in larger group fights. As always, I hope this video was helpful. If you'd like to see some Necromancer gameplay, I'll link it on screen and in the description. If you're interested in seeing more overviews, as well as builds, gameplay commentaries, and just general Guild Wars 2 theorycraft, feel free to subscribe. And thanks for watching.